Hello out there. This is Pamela Fagan Hutchins, and you found me on Wine, Women, and Writing. This is the show, if you haven't seen it or listened to it before, where I talk with other writers about especially their female characterization, although I'm a sucker for any great characterization, but great female characters, complex, authentic, a little crazy, like the real versions of us women. And often that means I'm talking to women writers. So I like that a lot, and I hope you're going to enjoy today's show. I want to make sure that you do know that I hereby solemnly swear I always have to say this. It's so boring. Wine, Women, and Writing is a copyrighted and solely owned production from Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. All hail Pam Stack, she from whom all blessings flow, our producer. And thanks for tuning in, you guys. If you want to see past shows, watch episodes, see what books we covered, check out the authors, or see upcoming shows, you can prep and have read the book in advance and then be able to really get into what I'm talking with these authors about, then be sure to go out to my website where you can see that and much, much more. So with no further ado, today's guest is coming to me, I think, from New Orleans. I didn't verify that earlier. We've got Samantha Downing today. She's a USA Today bestseller, and she's got a brand new release out called He Started It. Welcome to the show, Samantha.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And yes, I am in New Orleans.
Are you from there? Are you a native?
No, I am a California girl, and I did not move here until after I graduated from college, and now I live in New Orleans. So I am probably have a little bit of both in me now at this point. California is definitely who I am, but I also now speak a little Southern, so there you go.
Exactly. Well, I had a feeling it wasn't native because you didn't say Nolans when you came on. But I love New Orleans. Spent many years in Houston, and it was kind of the favorite road trip to head there for the weekend. It's such a fun place. Do you find it an inspiring place for your writing?
I think so. I don't know. I didn't start really writing until I moved here. I've been here probably close to 20, 25 years now. And there is a big arts culture here. And
Right.
there are a lot of people who make their living doing art and just sort of picking up jobs where they can and sort of live these nomadic random lives. I was never one of them. I always had a 9-to-5 job. I always had a Monday through Friday job, but there's a lot of people who do and who are trying to find a creative way to live life. So it is a pretty inspiring place.
I also find that there's a wonderful darkness and accessibility to things that might seem a little bit off in the rest of the country. But in New Orleans, they're just kind of okay. Just kind of, you let it roll. And I love that about going there. I come back inspired because it just feels like anything could happen there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it is definitely a place where you do things that you would never do in your normal life, whether it's, I don't know, having a Bloody Mary at 8 o'clock in the morning or eating till you just can't eat anymore. It just, people come to New Orleans and lose their minds a little bit, so which can be good.
It can be. Well, that kind of brings us to He Started It, doing things you never would have dreamed you'd do before. So you guys, if you haven't read the book, this is a really twisty thriller, very much a hard to guess who done it there. So I want Samantha to introduce this book to us in her own words, since I'm butchering it. I'm still kind of reeling from the ending, which I won't give away.
Okay. It is about 3 siblings and 2 of their spouses who have to go on a road trip in order to get their grandfather's inheritance. And their job is to sprinkle their grandfather's ashes at the end of the road trip. And it is a repeat of a trip they took when they were kids, and the grandfather had been the driver of that trip. So the book flashes back and forth between the current trip and the one that was almost exactly 20 years ago. And there are lots of secrets, lots of family secrets, lots of grudges, lots of scores to settle. And these siblings do not necessarily want to be locked in a car together. So it's a pressure cooker kind of situation in that car.
It really is. And before we get on to the pressure cooker in the car, tell me about your decision to start with Beth. Beth is not your prototypical protagonist. She pretty much starts off telling you that, that I'm not sure you're even going to like me. And yet there's just something about her that's compulsively readable. Where'd you come up with the idea for Beth and these other characters and how you'd kick this book off?
Beth is the middle child, and I specifically wanted that viewpoint because it doesn't have a defined role the way the oldest child and the youngest child have. So I wanted her to be in the middle and sort of have a viewpoint of everything else. And she is not your typical protagonist. And I don't know if she's likable. Honestly, when I'm writing, I don't think about whether characters are likable or not. That's the last thing on my mind. I want them to be compelling, and I want you to want to turn the page and see what happens next or what they're going to do next. But I don't think likable is really, I don't think Hannibal Lecter is relevant, but he's fascinating. So I think there's a lot of characters out there. I think you can be fascinating without being a person you want to go have dinner with. And she is definitely that.
She is definitely that. There's just so much that explodes a few chapters of this book that I've got to be super careful, you guys, because this book rolls out layer after layer after layer of the complexity of these siblings' relationship and their tangled past and all the trauma that they've been through together. So tell me first, since I'm going to be so careful not to step into the plot mires that might give things away, how did you come up with the idea of a book like this family dynamic that's so incredibly bad? These siblings are not nice to each other.
Right. Well, my first book was about a nuclear family, mom, dad, kids, and I didn't want to do that. And the sibling relationship is really fascinating to me because these are people you grow up with and you spend your formative years with. And it's not something you can repeat later in life. You can be married for 50 years, you can raise kids, but you can never repeat your formative years. And nobody can get to you the way a sibling can. They know exactly how to push your buttons. They know your history. They know your most embarrassing moments from your awkward years. It's a different kind of relationship. And so I wanted to sort of touch into that and how when you get around your siblings, you become childlike again. You revert back to that original relationship with them. And you all fall right back into your roles that you had as you were growing up. And I thought that was a fascinating thing to write about.
Especially with the way they grew up and the secrets that they can't hide from each other because they were part of it. And to me, that's one of the things that's fascinating about siblings is you can't pretend. You can't put on that veneer that you do for the rest of the world because they really do know where you came from and who you are when you peel back the layers of that onion. So that happened pretty quickly with these guys, that all of that artifice started falling away that they'd constructed in their grown-up lives.
Mm.
Have you ever
Yes.
known anybody as twisted as these siblings? Did any inspiration come from real siblings for these characters? Because I'm scared if it did, but
I hope I don't know anybody as twisted as these characters. No, I definitely take what would be a normal family situation and take it to the extreme. I take it way over the top, hopefully, for most people. As far as as far as the siblings, I do have an older brother, and he actually is very much like Eddie, but not in the evil sense, in the type of personality. He's charming, he's likable, people love him, he knows everybody. He's that guy that makes friends wherever he goes. The character I probably am most like is Portia because I am the baby of the family. And I had not just my brother, but I had stepsisters that were a lot older than me. So it's kind of like you're always the fifth wheel, and they're talking about boyfriends as I'm playing with Barbie. So there's that much of a, Portia is kind of the fifth wheel on the trip because she's the only one without a spouse with her, and she's a little bit alone. So I think I could relate more to that position that she's in.
Yeah, and it's interesting. One of the things that I know I love to do as an author, and in hearing you talk about your own brother here, that you take something that feels familiar in real life, but then you say, now, what if it was completely different? What if he was a really horrible person behind this, and draw those layers in behind this wonderful brother that you have that's a great example of certain characteristics, but then to just be able to just say, nah, let's make him bad.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
And I believe he's listening right now, so I'm not going to say anything bad about it.
Yeah, exactly. None of Eddie's bad characteristics were based on your brother. Only the everybody likes it.
The good thing. The good things.
So, if you had to pick a favorite character out of the book, do you have one?
I love the mother. I love the mom of the siblings. She only appears in flashbacks, but she was probably the most difficult to write, but the most fascinating because moms will go to great lengths for their children, and sometimes in a good way and sometimes in a bad way. So it was really walking a fine line between what a mom would do or what a mom could be pushed to do.
Right.
But also that in her mind, it's all for the children. It's all for her kids. So that it is believable in some sense that if moms were pushed to the brink, they would act in a very extreme way.
Yeah, it does make you, as a mom, and I have my husband and I, between us, have 5 kids. And so as a mom, you sit there and think, how far would I really go? And that provides a lot of room in fiction. You've got 2 great motivators. You've got that backstory of the mom, and then you've got, of course, money. And what would you do even to your great brother who's watching? What would you do to great siblings or bad siblings for money? And a lot, apparently, in this book.
Yes. But I think that it is the money, but it's also the backstory behind them and what the feelings that are behind not just the money, but getting even with your siblings for things that went on in the past. So there's a dual motivation that's both emotional plus also the big pot of money at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think back on my brother and some of the things I'd like to get back at him about. If there were money, I'd be more willing. I'd be a lot more willing. So, Paul, you better watch out. Do you give yourself nightmares with these books? Do you think twice about getting in the car with your own family after writing something like this? Does it stick with your imagination? Are you like, nah, I can separate it. I can draw that line.
No, it doesn't. The books themselves don't give me nightmares. I don't think I'd ever want to go on a 2-week road trip with my family, as terrible as that is. 2 weeks is a long time in a car. That's every day, all day, just driving. I think my brother would agree. We would kill each other. Like, we would never last 2 weeks. It would be over.
Don't bring a gun. Just don't bring a gun. No sharp object.
I mean, that's just a long time to be with somebody. You better really, really be okay with spending that much time literally trapped in a car. I mean, you can't go anywhere, so you're just there.
You pretty much need to be Mother Teresa and the Pope, just put them in the car. The rest of us would have problems. So this is for you, your second published novel. Is that right? And your first novel, you said, was a nuclear family. Now, I have not read the first one, although I've heard great things about it. Between these two, do you have a favorite? Between, is it The Lovely Wife, right? The Lovely Wife is the first one. My Lovely Wife, sorry. And he started it. Is there one that for you was more fun to write or that you've enjoyed especially much?
No, I don't. I actually, my favorite book is always the next book because my goal is always to improve as I go. And I get excited about I'm a shiny new object kind of person.
Yeah.
So it's always the next book. This is the one. I don't know what the one is, but I'm
Yeah.
always like, this is the one. And then when I'm done with it, the next one is the one.
So right now, what is the one then? What are you working on?
My third book, I'm finishing up edits for that and will be out next year. Another thriller, and that's all I can say.
Cool. Well, we'll be excited for that one. And now your first book, My Lovely Wife, is also working its way through having been acquired for production by Nicole Kidman's production company. Is that right?
Right. It was Amazon Studios and
Yeah.
Nicole Kidman's production company partnered and to make a
Okay.
feature film. That was announced right before the lockdown happened. So I don't have any more information on it. I'm not sure how Hollywood is working these days or if it's just on pause. I'm not sure.
It's crazy, isn't it, to think about, actors have to get close to each other to make a movie and all the production staff in with them and things that we took for granted, like Netflix is never ending and we can watch until the end of time. Well, we'd better get them all back to work so we have something new to stream.
I was going to
And
say, we're going to run out of content. It's not going to be long.
luckily for us, the authors can keep writing because we are locked away in our closets anyway. So do you have a particular way that you like to write? Do you go into a zone? Do you have a special spot? How do you do it?
Well, obviously right now I'm writing at home all the time. I do write only in the mornings.
Mhm.
That's really when my creativity is the best. In the afternoon or the evening, I can do some editing, but normally evenings are my reading time. I separate writing and reading, so it's like a separation in my mind. And I write every day, even if it's something I throw out. I write every day, almost even just for the practice of it. And I can, in normal times, I can write in public. I can write in a coffee shop. I used to write in airports because I used to have a job where I traveled. And I just, if the noise bothers me, I put on white noise. I don't have music. It's usually just total silence that I write in.
The variety of how people find their muse really to me is fascinating because you'll get one person that swears that I have a girlfriend that writes mysteries that writes without headphones in public. And it drives me crazy. I can't do it. I don't mind the action. I just can't help listening to the conversations because I'm always listening for that new snippet of dialogue or something crazy somebody says, and I
Sure.
just get too distracted. But the white noise helps. I can do that, and I like to write outside. But the public places are kind of off limits now. We're a little stymied. So when you're thinking about where you get your ideas from, do ideas just come to you? Do you work at them? Do they come from real life? I mean, where generally do you find a book is the genesis of a book is for you?
They can really come from anywhere. My first book, My Lovely Wife, the original inspiration came from a documentary I saw. And I sort of took the idea, it was about a couple that had kidnapped a woman. And in that case, the man was really the instigator and he sort of forced his wife to go along with it. And my thought was, how can a woman like do this to another woman? You
Yeah.
don't hear about women doing those kind of things. But I also started thinking if a woman was the instigator, who would she be? And I created the character of Millicent in My Lovely Wife. For the second one, the inspiration came from somebody telling me about a road trip that they took where a bunch of things went wrong. Small thing, flat tire, somebody got sick. But I started thinking that what a great format for a thriller. And you could do so much with that one when you're on a road trip, and the story developed from there. But I do not plot my books. I do not outline them at all. It's all written organically. So I kind of just sit down and start writing. During this period in the pandemic, I've probably started half a dozen books that I've thrown out. And so sometimes they take off and sometimes they don't. It just depends.
I love the idea of you being on the road trip with them. Just basically you get in the car on page one and you let yourself be Beth, at the beginning there and just see how her emotional journey develops in this car. There's so many cool things about a road trip too, because you have the ability to change and go to really interesting places. And in this case, in this book, some seriously weird places. How did you even find the places they went to on this road trip? You guys, it was like the Bonnie and Clyde Museum or something, where they were shot to death by the federal agents. I mean, weird stuff. How did you come up with those?
I did a lot of research into it. It's probably the most research I've done into a book. Uh, Places like, or websites like Roadside America were very helpful. And because this is not a family that will go anywhere normal. They would not just go hang
Right.
out at the Grand Canyon or Mount Rushmore or whatever. They would go to the weirdest places around. And we have physically a gigantic country that has so much in it. There's so many bizarre places to go visit, and I went through and mapped it out and tried to make sure they could drive the allotted time within the period. So it was I have driven across the country before, but I have not been on this particular trip.
Yeah, I was trying to decide whether or not to tell my husband any of these places, whether he's going to be like, well, that sounds kind of interesting, because I was like, no, no. But they were great to read about. And I really, the ending, I guessed the whole way. Some of it I had right, but most of it I didn't. So good job on the twisty ending. And I look forward to your next one next year, the big secret reveal that we'll wait for.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for
You're very,
having me.
you're very, very welcome. And you guys out there, be sure that you go back out and check the website so that you can see the next show and read along the book with the show. And also to make sure you know the name of Samantha's book. It's called He Started It. So you can go out and pick a copy if you're late to the game on this one. While you're there, it's not going to hurt my feelings at all. If you pick up any of my novels, don't forget I've got the pre-orders up now for the next 2 books in the Patrick Flint series. And I'll check you guys next week. Samantha, thanks for being on.
Thank you.